Hello everyone and welcome to Lesson 7. Whenever and wherever you are, I hope you're having a wonderful day and or night. Today we're going to limit the number of jumps our player has, and to do that we're going to need three things. We're going to need tags, prefabs, and collision detection. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a tag, and I'm going to explain a little bit about it. So I'm going to go to Hierarchy, and I'm going to go to Player, and right now in the inspector, under the player's name, we have Tag Untagged. I'm going to click that little drop-down menu, and I'm going to go to Player. So now the difference between a name over here, or right here, and a tag is that a name, in code, we usually reference one thing at a time. But with a tag, we can reference multiple things. Particularly in this, we're going to reference all of our platforms here. We're going to give them a tag of ground. We want to know when we're touching the ground. To do that, we have two options. I could change all of these tags to ground, or luckily we thought ahead and we made a prefab. So I'm going to go to Project Prefabs, and in here you see we have our platformer prefab. The advantage of prefabs are twofold. The first is that we can drag and drop a pre-edited item. And then the second is going to be we can edit one prefab to change everything in the whole game by editing just one item. So I'm going to click on Open Prefab in the inspector. And that's going to give us our prefab edit view. Anything we do in here will happen to all other instances of the prefab in the main game. So I'm going to go over here to the inspector, Tag Untagged. And I'm going to drag it right down here. We don't have a tag that we want right now, so I'm going to click on Add Tag. Right now the list is empty. I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to name this Ground. The name can be anything that we want. I tend to do all lowercase just because I don't have to think about it later when I'm coding. But after we do that, I'm going to move over to our platform grass, click on that, and it's going to bring this up again. So in the inspector, Tag Untagged, now ground appears here. I'm going to click on ground, and this is now named ground. If I click this little arrow right here, it's going to go out of our prefab view and back into our main scene. And if I check if I did it correctly, everything here, all of these platforms, are now named ground. It edited everything all at once. Now, if it didn't edit correctly, for example, let's say if it's still untagged for some reason, we can change that by simply going over to Overrides right here. And then I have two options. Revert All will change everything back to the original prefab. So I click Revert All, and boom, this now says ground. Okay, so we have created our tags and we have edited our prefab. The next thing we need to do is talk about some collision detection. So previously, you might remember that we put these little box collider 2Ds on everything, and that is our collision detection. So collision detection has many purposes, but the two main purposes is that items can physically touch each other and bounce each other away. So we can actually walk on this platform rather than falling through. And the second is that we can run code based on what we're touching. All right, now we're going to go to our code. So we're going to go to Project, Scripts, double click on Player Movement. And the first thing we need to do, remember, we're going to declare variables, set variables, and use variables. So let's declare two new variables. I'm going to say public. This time I'm going to say int. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, a whole number, because we don't need half a jump. And I'm going to call it number of jumps left. And then I'm going to create one more. I'm going to call it public int. We're going to call it max number of jumps. Now you're probably going to be tempted to use small variable names, but I really recommend using detailed variable names. Kind of a stitch in time saves 9 rule. It will save us time later when you're trying to figure out what goes where. So the first thing we want to do in our start method, we want to go ahead and we want to define our max number of jumps. So I'm going to say max number of jumps equals, let's say, if we put 1, he'll have 1 jump. 2, he'll have a double jump. 3, he'll have a triple jump. My frog, I feel he's particularly froggy, so I'm going to give him 3. And then we need to set, in the beginning, we want to set our number of jumps left equal to our max number of jumps. So basically, we want to give our frog full number of jumps whenever the game starts. So we've declared our variables, we've set our variables, now we're going to use our variables. So let's move down into our jumping here. So previously, we have every time we press the button jump, then we're going to jump. But now we need two things. We need to know if we're pressing jump and if we have jumps left. So next, inside these last two parentheses here, next to the word jump, I'm going to go ahead and put ampersand, ampersand. On an American keyboard, that is Shift 7. This is basically and. I'm going to put number of jumps left is greater than 0. So, in plain English, if you press down the jump button and you have jumps left, do this stuff. So, inside the if squiggly brackets, we're going to put number of jumps minus equals 1. And you may remember before, up here plus equals means add, minus equals means subtract. So what this says is if we press the jump button and we have jumps left, make our player go up into the air and subtract 1 from the current number of jumps left. Now if you're quick, you might realize that we just set a limit on the number of jumps. If you're even quicker, you might have realized that now we only have one set of jumps for the entire game, so we need to fix that. And to do that, we're going to jump into the air, and we're going to decide anytime we touch the ground, we want to refill our jumps, right? Like in Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, if you have double jumps, you can jump twice, and then when you touch the ground, you can jump twice again. So, in order to do that, we need to use some collision detection. And what we're going to do, outside, make sure you're outside of the void update method. Method and function is the same, by the way. It basically just means block of code, and it's going to be signified with these two little parentheses right after a name or a word. We're going to make our own method now. So I'm going to type void on collision. So void on collision means when you touch something else. When your green box collider touches another green box collider. And we have three options. We have on collision enter, which is going to be the first frame. You want to use that, for example, if a Goomba touches your Mario brother, it's going to damage him. We have on collision stay, is every frame that you're touching. If you're playing Brawl Stars and you're in a healing area, you want it to heal you every time you're in there. And on collision exit is going to be the last frame that they were touching. So for this, we're going to use on collision enter. And because it's 2D, we're using 2D, we need that. If I hit this parenthesis here, it autofills it. Remember, private void and regular void is the same. Unity's automatically going to add the private keyword in there. Now, this right here, the collision 2D, collision, this is the name of the thing you're touching. We're assigning it a name. So I'm just in the habit of using the word other. In many programming languages, it's going to use other, and it's visually easy to understand. So now what we're saying is if we touch something, the thing's name is other. And after we touch it, if other dot game object lowercase g capital O dot compare tag. Remember before we made our ground tag, so I'm going to type parenthesis quotation ground. Then we'll put some squiggly brackets here. So when we touch something, if the other game object's tag is ground, do things in here. And what we want to do is we want to refill our jumps. How do you think we're going to do that? Go ahead and pause the video for a second and see if you can figure it out. And we're back. I'm not sure if you paused it or not, but if you did, I hope you got it right. Okay, and let's see if you got it right. We're going to type number of jumps left equals max number of jumps. And we're going to hit Control and S to save. Make sure your asterisk goes away. Now we have everything we need for our jump to work, I want to add two small things here real quick. Actually, let's show you here. I'll show you once that our jump is working. Boing, boing, boing. I only have 3 jumps. Okay. So there's 2 things I want to do to make things look a little better here. The first one is I'm going to go ahead and delete max number of jumps. We're going to set that in Unity. That way it gives us an easy way to set it as often as we like, as easily as we like. And the other thing is right now, you may have noticed that when we jump, if we press our jump button many times, we go up really quick, or when we're falling, it barely jumps. And that's not something we really want to have happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the velocity before we give it a new velocity. And to do that, we're going to say this dot get component rigid body 2D dot velocity. So we're accessing our rigid body 2D velocity component. We're going to set it equal to vector3.0. And vector3.0 is the same as new vector3 parentheses 0, comma 0, comma 0. And I'm going to say, so what that does is first it resets our velocity to 0, and then it's going to add our jump. So I'm going to Control S to save. I'm going to go back into our scene here. I'm going to press play, and now, boing, boing, boing. Everything works perfect. Okay, and I will see you in the next one.